been a great week. Round one is wrapping up here. And I'm here now live with my good buddy Grant Miller across the country. It is Thursday, May 2nd. I got the Boston Bruins Game 6 on currently into the first period. It is tied 0-0 for Game 6. Round one is wrapping up here. A couple battles still ensuing. And round two is slowly but surely presenting itself. It's been a hard-working week for us, too, here at Hard Hat Hockey. A lot of battles, a lot of camaraderie, giving some hits, taking some hits. Grant, you giving some hits, taking some hits?
Trying to give out more than I take, definitely. This game that we're watching right now feels like a powder keg. It's one of these classic playoff games where the game's so tight, but you just feel like when one goal pours in, you're going to get, 6 more. So, but now that I said that, it'll probably be a nice 2-1 tight game. But that's what the feel is right now. I know we're going to break down all the matchups, but I mean, Toronto stole one in OT the last time we talked. So I, love this matchup. We said it back in the first episode. You can set your watch to it, and it's starting to deliver. We'll say that. Now, who knows what happens tonight? Just enjoy it while it's here. It's playoff hockey. I'm excited. Let's get into it.
This Bruins Game 6 has all the makings of the curse living on. I totally foresee the Leafs outshooting them 40-20 and the Bruins coming away with a 1-0 victory. So, with that said,
yeah,
go ahead, Greg.
You nailed it. You nailed it. That was exactly my thoughts.
With that said, the rundown of episode 4, we're going to be updating you on round 1, what teams are moving on, the battles that are, like we said, still ensuing. We got some NHL housekeeping to keep up with, to tidy up with some movement, some head coaching positions, some awards to give out. Awards finalists for the Norris, for the Vezina have been announced. What's next for the teams that have been eliminated? Hard Hat Hockey's top 5 Stanley Cup odds of those teams remaining, and the Hard Hats of the week, as is tradition. Before we get things kicked off here, we want to hear from you. We're officially on Facebook and Twitter. If you're on social media, reach out. We still have the email account available if you'd like to reach out old school, hardhathockey1@gmail.com. Follow us, leave us a review. We want to hear from you. How can we tailor our show to you, the Hard Hat Hockey fans who we know and love? And stay tuned for next week's episode where we're going to be doing a deep dive analysis of the round 2 matchups. Scores, just a breakdown from across the league. The Panthers defeated the Lightning in their series 4-1. The Rangers went on to sweep the Caps 4-0 for this first round's only sweep. The Hurricanes defeated the Islanders 4-1. The Bruins, as discussed, lead the Leafs 3-2 and are currently playing in Game 6 as we speak. In the West, the Oilers beat the Kings 4-1. The Avs came back to beat the Jets 4-1. The Canucks lead the Preds 3-2. Game 6 will be in Nashville Friday night. That's at 7 Eastern. Should be a rambunctious crowd at Bridgestone Arena. And the Stars lead the Knights 3-2. Since we last spoke, they've been on a 3-game win streak. Very impressive comeback from them. NHL housekeeping, Grant. Norris Trophy finalist. We've got Quinn Hughes, 92 points in 82 games. Roman Josi from the Nashville Predators, 85 points in 82 games at 33 years old, may I add. And Cale Makar, 90 points in 77 games, coming off the Norris Trophy last season. Frankly, I think it's going to be your boy, Quinn Hughes.
Yeah, they don't like to repeat awards too much unless it's like a real no-brainer. If there's a level of debate, I think they like to kind of spread it around. If you're asking me like, hey, I'm building a team and I'm trying to pick a defenseman, like Cale is probably the guy. But if I'm like a fan or, who's like most exciting to watch, who am I tuning in to watch more? It's Quinn. So that's who I'm thinking is going to win this. But you never know. The Norris one's fun. Like the Norris Trophy is like, that's the real, I try to put this together. Like you can really sound sophisticated and knowledgeable about your hockey acronym and your hockey knowledge by dropping some Norris stuff. Being like, oh, that guy's a dark horse Norris candidate. Like he should be considered. If he was in a bigger market, he'd be a Norris finalist. So I like that trophy for that regard.
Well, it carries some weight still. I think we can agree that some of the awards have become very much a popularity contest, and it's
Yeah,
hard to
the one we're about to talk about. Yeah.
yeah, and it's hard to determine a good rhyme or reason on how to consistently deliver those awards. The Norris still seems like a regal victory to have ambition to win.
Yeah, and the what constitutes a good defender has like changed over the year. We've seen the game evolve. I also, on the front end of this, I should have prefaced this. I love that hockey still calls these trophies by just like legends names, and it's not just like the best defender in the NHL world. Like I like that it's got some character to it. I wish I was not old enough when they did this, but I kind of wish they would do the same thing with the divisions. They wouldn't do that, but that I always think that's kind of cool.
I think they did that in the 80s, right?
70s and 80s, and then yeah, when they started, they got like the new ESPN deal, and the world changed, and they were like, no, we got to call this the Central and stuff now. But yeah, no, keep this going. Yossi won this a few years ago, and obviously, Kale's got. So I think this is they'll just look at Quinn and say, here's you got it. In the same way that teams oftentimes have to make the playoffs and lose in the first round, you got to learn how to lose. You got to get there. Sometimes you got to be finalists and not get it before they finally give it to you.
For sure. I think where Quinn wins this award is one, the resurgence of the Vancouver Canucks,
Certainly helps.
and how dependent they are on him on that blue line core. He carries a lot of weight, and without him, they're probably not. They've been flirting with the President's Trophy in and out all season long. I don't think they're doing that without Quinn Hughes. You could argue Cale Makar is still 90.77 games. The Abs would still probably have finished third in their division without Cale Makar. That's not to say he's not incredible, but I think Quinn Hughes has been a that much of a difference maker for his team.
I like that there's been a lot of variety in this trophy. I mean, when growing up, like Lindstrom won this every year in Detroit, and there really wasn't much of a case against him just winning it. So I think it's a testament to how the game's evolved and what we ask of defensemen and what makes a really good defenseman. As you see some exciting guys in this, and it's not just kind of the old school twin tower blue line type of guys. I mean, these dudes are dynamic players, and it's just a testament to how exciting the league has gotten.
It's gotten very exciting in the spirit of youth and excitement. The Rookie of the Year Calder Trophy finalists were announced. Connor Bedard, 61 points in 68 games. Brock Faber for the Minnesota Wild, 47 points in 82 games. And Luke Hughes, 47 points, 82 games for the New Jersey Devils. Hughes family's got something going in New Jersey, hopefully. Something in the water about the Hughes family in Northeast United States. I think this one's a slam dunk. I announced it on episode 1. The odds at the time were minus 2,500 for Connor Bedard to win this one. Even if it was closer, I just think by NHL has spent so much money on marketing this kid this year. There's no way he loses this.
No, there's not. And I think, we're taking the piss here a little bit, but he's had a great year. I'm not going to get too bent out of shape over this. Just wish those lottery balls hit differently. But no, this is good. I like, he is a really young kid. I like when one of the funnier like Calder things is when like just a Russian guy comes over. Like Panarin won this trophy when he was like 24. I think he was the guy for the Wild.
Oh,
They
Kaprizov.
come, yeah, they're just old men comparatively, like in the league. Because if you think like I feel like Mitch Marner was like 17 when he was like a rookie, and you compare that to like Panarin being like, yeah, I'm a rookie at 24. So no, it's just cool. Good for Connor. Listen, I'm not good for the league. Blackhawks, they've got enough breaks, but that's a story for a different day.
That Chicago this year Quite literally the Chicago Connor Bedards. I felt bad for the kid. It speaks to how good he is. He was a one man show out there for the majority of the season. The other thing I like about these nominees is two of the three are defensemen. That's really exciting if you're a Minnesota Wild or New Jersey Devils fan. That's big time when you have a blue chip prospect that's producing those kinds of numbers as a rookie defenseman. That's hard to do. Certainly excitement for both of those teams moving forward if they're managed correctly, which we'll get into a little bit of that later on. Grant, drama out of Seattle. The Seattle Kraken have fired their first head coach, David Haxtell. GM Ron Francis is now looking for his replacement. As I said, first coach in Kraken history. To me, this seems abrupt. He won the Jack Adams Award in 2022-2023 following the Kraken's first year, which was 2021-2022. They didn't make the playoffs that year. Huge turnaround for the 2022-23 season, 40-point turnaround to be exact. And then even more drama unfolds in the end of year meeting reviews with each of their players. Ron Francis met one-on-one with players, I imagine on checkout day, locker room cleanout day. Quote from Emily Kaplan of ESPN, significant players on the Kraken told management they do not want to play on the team if Haxtell is the head coach. Now, I'm sure this is one of those stories where you got to take it with a grain of salt, but I also don't know where Emily Kaplan would get off just making this up. And to me, more of a red flag players who mentioned not wanting to play for the coach. To me, that is the cancer in the locker room, not David Haxtell. Thoughts?
Yeah, I mean, it is always a what have you done for me lately league. Seattle had some success probably earlier than a lot of people anticipated, but they dropped off. The expectations were pretty high going into this year and they didn't get back to it. So I think two parts to this. One, if you can't meet expectations in the NHL, you're going to struggle. Second, the story kind of getting out there probably was just word of mouth between front office employees, players, agents. They know how to get a narrative out there. There is probably some truth to guys not wanting to, put up with Haxall behind the bench. I think he's a decent coach. He's a college guy, right? Like he came from North Dakota. Kind of like a hard ass. And I don't mean that in a bad way. Like there's player coaches and there's hard asses. And, from what I remember him in Philly, it was kind of a team that would just want to kind of grind you down a little bit. And they had some success, but they never were, a comet. I mean, they were never like dynamite. You were never like, oh man, fucking Philly's coming to town. So I don't know what's next for this guy. I don't know what exactly is next for Seattle. They got a good build there, but they have to take advantage of these early years that they have here where they are kind of new and these contracts are young and they got some talent. They just don't think this is the guy to get you basically past the first and second round. And there's not a lot of guys out there that can do that until you find them. That's what's crazy about NHL coaching.
It's hard to find the right fit. He did coach at North Dakota. I think he was, so they had the big resurgence here, 2022, 2023. They beat the Avs in the first round. Unfortunately, I think that kind of teed them up for failure. Frankly, and granted, look, they pulled off a great upset. They beat the Avs in the first round. That Avs team was a shell of themselves. They were riddled with injuries. They led the league by a mile in man games missed for that season. So frankly, too, I don't think he was given the best roster as it stands. I mean, Andrei Burakovsky has been in and out of the lineup ever since he came over from Colorado, and they were leaning on that guy heavily to produce. And the injuries have been kind of detrimental for their point production. And then Matty Beniers has been their big draft piece.
He's the guy
in their franchise history.
Yeah, he's the guy that his trajectory is gonna tell the story of how well the Kraken are perceived. If he's a star and he's doing well, people are they got some good things there. I mean, they have it. It's not as robust as Vegas, but it's a very similar story of like, you know, everyone's best player on the second line is kind of got picked. You know, kind of biased here. They have Oliver Bjorkstrand. Ollie was such a great player, great value here in Columbus. He's doing great things in Seattle. You're right though. It is not the 2018 Knights, but the Knights kind of expectations for, whatever the future is on expansion. We're gonna get to Utah here in a bit, but then making the playoffs and winning, everyone's now thinks that is the standard. And if you want that to be the standard, that's fine, but you got to find the right coach. You got to develop the talent, and you kind of have to, start making some moves in the off season to build the team. So I don't know, man. The coaching carousel is brutal because there's only a handful of coaches that you can look at and say, like, this is a guy that can get you to the cup. And a lot of teams, just by sheer numbers, are not going to have those type of guys. And you don't know who the next young crop of leaders are until you give them a shot, but you're scared to give them a shot because it's such a what have you done for me lately league. Expectations are so tight. You only have so many years to build. So, here's a guy who had some success in Philly. They went with him starting, being the first coach of any organization. I don't envy that. I'm sure that's really difficult, but yeah, I'll have my eye on Seattle and seeing what they do.
Yeah. I wish they would have been a little more patient with him, but certainly will be one of the more interesting off seasons.
They lived the dream, man. They lived the dream. They hit those playoffs and they said, man, this is awesome. Can't wait to do this the next 4 years. And then you miss, and then you're back to the drawing board.
Right. That's how fast it happens. Grant, this next topic, I was thinking about this on my ride to work today. Do you remember in Anchorman when the news coverage is covering all summer long the birth of the baby panda at the zoo? That's how I feel about the Utah Hockey Name Watch. And we are on day 14 of the Utah Hockey Name Watch, and the watch continues as we all hold our breath anxiously. Will it be the mammoth? Will it be the Yetis? Will it be the black diamonds? I've heard so many.
That's not a bad one. That's the first I'm hearing.
I thought it was pretty creative given their proximity to some awesome ski resorts. I digress. There was a recent interview with NPR's public radio, and new ownership group, the Smith family, suggested a bracket style decision starting with 8 team names that the fans will ultimately decide. So March Madness style. Also in the interview, though, he did not seem rushed to pick a name anytime soon. He was very focused on the draft and the moves they want to make this offseason. Speaking of that draft, they have 7 picks in the first 3 rounds, and the roster they're inheriting. So looking forward to covering this in the offseason. I think they might step right in and have a good team.
Are they eligible? Like, can they get the first overall pick? Like in Arizona? Like, I know they don't have great odds.
Yeah, 7%.
So they could. I mean, that would be very unprecedented. I didn't know if they were going to stack it. I think Seattle was basically just like, no, you're going to have the 3rd pick no matter what, or something like that. I kind of remember that being a thing. I could completely off base with that, but yeah, it's kind of weird how they're not picking a name yet. Maybe us talking about it and the watch itself, like watching the namespace, is generating enough interest that they're not scared, but they're like, listen, there people are talking, so it's fine.
Well, I think you need to give your fan base enough time to get comfortable with the brand, with the mascot, buy some merchandise, start generating your social media posts, advertisement around the city. I mean, there's a lot that goes into just having this nameless mascot. That's how people recognize the organization. So
it's branding.
They should speed it up. I do agree with you. But we, as always, Hard Hat Hockey, just like Panda Watch and Anchorman, we'll be on Utah Hockey Watch. Everyone stay tuned. Grant, over the week, we had some more fan mail from the Tampa Bay Lightning loyalty. This from Tabby from the Tampa area, also a Bolts fan, she wants to know how we feel about Rempe's physical play for the New York Rangers and if we think that it goes overboard. Before we share our opinions, I want the audience to know that since Rempe has joined the Blue Shirts, the Rangers are 17-2-1 with him in the lineup. However, he has proceeded to hurt or injure at least 4 players that I counted, including Trevor Van Riemsdyk and TJ Oshie in their recent series with the Washington Capitals. Grant, how do you feel about Matt Rempe?
Did the league hand down a suspension on his latest hit? Because I came in hard with the elbow. Okay, well, add that to our watch list.
Okay.
It was pretty brutal. Listen, I like this kid a lot. He's one of those dudes where I wish he was on my team. If I'm a Rangers fan, I'm really loving what he brings to this. You got a stacked team. You got the bread man doing his thing, and then you get a little muscle on the back end. You love that. Do I think it's overboard a little bit when he first came in and he was fighting like every night? Yeah. I think that was a little much. I think for his own safety, it seems like someone kind of talked to him and was like, listen, man, you're gonna like wear yourself pretty thin. This isn't the 70s anymore. You don't have to be doing that. The guys that did do that, they weren't skating for too long, and, not to get too dark, but the quality of life's not good with a lot of, knocks to the head. So I think they ideally going to be in a good space. I think the league is better with guys like him as long as it's, within reason. They're on good teams too. That always helps. I think with these kind of latest hits where he's like hurt people, he's a big dude, man. He's got to learn to control himself, and you can't have like an elbow fly up there. So I can't say like that is kind of inexcusable. Again, if that happened to a Blue Jacket, I'd be pissed at this kid. But it's one of those, we'll see how he acclimates himself. It's a great way to make a name for yourself, especially on a good team. If you know who you are, you're not going to be putting up 20 goals, but you can put up, 20 fights and get the people going. And there was a long time, we talked about this just as friends, there was a long time where like the league didn't have guys like that. And they were kind of moving away from it. And, the fighting conversation, man, you can have that debate. You can have that conversation any day. And maybe in the off season when we really need to fill some minutes, we'll get into it. But it does feel like in the past kind of 3 years, you just, anecdotally from watching the games, like the linesmen aren't jumping in as quick, and they're letting guys police themselves a little bit to a degree. And we're starting to see some of that natural order of things take place. So, maybe it's copycat league. Maybe some other teams in the Metro see this kid and they're like, we got to bring in some muscle. The Jackets did that a couple of years ago when we were getting just beat up on the ice, and we brought in Matthew Olivier, and he's done a pretty good job of filling that role for us. I don't know if we're good enough to justify that salary spend, truthfully, but it does seem historically all the best teams have a guy who can drop the gloves and be physical. The Rangers got that guy. I just hope he stays healthy.
The Rangers got that guy, and I think he's going to be on that team for years to come. My verdict on Matt Rempe is, yes, he's definitely gone overboard. However, you love that guy if he's on your team, just like you said, and you can't stand it if Matt Rempe is hurting one of your players. So, yeah, to all things you said, I'll echo. He needs to get it under control a little bit. Can't be hurting people at that pace. Kind of reminds me of Tom Wilson, who still is just playing the same game that he has, seems like, for years, and is making $6.5 million doing it. So good for him.
Not a bad career.
Yeah. Not a bad way to go. But yeah, he's gone overboard for sure. Probably get it under control moving in, to next season maybe. For the rest of the playoffs, I don't foresee it changing. But you love him on your team. Okay, Grant, we're going to get into the either results or current situation of each matchup of round one. If the matchup has concluded, we're going to focus more on what's next for the team that lost. as episode 5 will feature our round 2 in-depth matchups. So starting in Florida, the Florida Panthers beat the Lightning 4-1. What is next for the Tampa Bay Lightning? So decidedly, they have one of the worst prospect pools, hence the Stanley Cup tax that we've mentioned the last couple of weeks. They purged assets, prospects, and draft picks for the likes of Brandon Hagel, Tanner Jeannot, Blake Coleman, and even more over the last couple of years to really go for their cup runs, which they came out with 2 Stanley Cups. And the majority of the league cannot say the same. Guys like Nick Paul, Anthony Cirelli, Vasilevsky, Eric Chernak, Nikita Kucherov, Victor Hedman are all signed until they're 34 years old. I don't know what their fascination with their number is, but Tampa Bay management has decided that when you turn 34 years old, your contract is up with us. So Hedman's deal expires next year. The rest of those names, that's your core until 2027. So that doesn't give you a lot of cap space to really rebuild. You're in that purgatory that the Chicago Blackhawks fell into, that the Pittsburgh Penguins fell into, that seemingly every team who finds success in the cap era, like the Los Angeles Kings, falls into. It's almost like a guarantee.
It's inevitable, and it's by design.
It's hard to avoid it when you're going for Stanley Cups in the cap era, which leads us to the big question. Captain, lifer in Tampa, Steven Stamkos, his contract he is still unsigned. He will be an unrestricted free agent following the conclusion of this season, and he is 34 years old, the magic number seemingly for Tampa Bay's management. What do you do here, Grant?
I think because of who he is, you probably bring him back. But I'm not a GM, and I don't have to make these hard decisions. But yeah, I think we're seeing it. We're seeing it turn into the Blackhawks, the Pens, the Kings. Exactly like I said, man. I mean, you nailed it. Father time comes for everyone, and these guys are getting older. You know, I know these guys are treating their bodies better than they were even just 10 years ago, but yeah, I think what they do with Stamkos, I think will be indicative of how they handle the rest of this rebuild. Because if you bring him back, you're probably just trying to chip away at success in the same way that like the Penguins did, you know, where they were kind of around. They're still there. Oh, Lightning, they're the Lightning. They're here in playoff time, but you just know that they're not gonna go for it unless a goalie gets hot. So I don't feel sorry for them. They got their time in the sun. The funny part of it is it was all under like COVID, and you can kind of point to them and be like, you know, when they had to play a real series against the Avs, they got it taken to them, which is not fair. But I'm just saying that as banter because I don't really like the Lightning. Sue me. This is kind of what happens when your team gets older.
It is such a trap in the cap era, like we discussed, to continue to just hang out in the middle. You make the playoffs, but you're not going much farther than the first round. And we've seen it with the Pittsburgh Penguins. Last 2 seasons, they obviously haven't made it even into the playoffs, but even before then, it was multiple years in a row where they're losing in the first round. To me, you have the option. Steven Stamkos has been a hero for that town and bringing Stanley Cup glory back to the Bay Area. You owe this to him. Plus, it's not like you're replacing his numbers if you are still looking to squeeze out some success. That's an 80-plus point player that you just have to replace. And
yeah, exactly that. It's not like they're flipping him for assets. Like you got to reach the deal. Maybe, I mean, he flipped everything around for that organization. I imagine he wants to come back, right? I mean, I'm not crazy for thinking that. So yeah, he'll still have success. It's not over for these guys. It's not like the NFL where it's like, dude, don't get on the field. You're a liability. Like these guys put up numbers. They'll still be good. They'll be around, but you can just tell that the rest of the East is starting to basically move them.
I agree. The Boston Bruins, as discussed, currently still 0-0 in the second period. Game 6 in Toronto. Game 7 will be, I believe, Saturday. Should Toronto tie it up 3-3 today, that Game 7 will be in Boston if it is needed. Austin Matthews today Was not on the ice. So he was on the ice for practice, but didn't participate in line rushes. And as we see in game 6 right now, he's not on the ice. I think this is a more serious injury than they're leading on to. If the Leafs somehow win this series, I don't know if he's going to be around for game 2. That instant replay looked like his leg got pretty wrapped up along the boards.
I was just about to ask if you saw the replay. Yeah, that didn't look good. He's going to be hurt. That's a real injury there.
And to fill that void, they're going to be looking to the likes of Willie Nylander. Unfortunately, it was kind of trading one injured player for another. I know we discussed if Nylander was he hurt, was it discipline? We don't know, but it seemed like Nylander came in and then Matthews get hurt. They can't field a fully healthy roster. The Bruins goaltending has been consistent throughout, as we discussed in our last episode, currently sporting a 1.8 goals against average, but the Leafs shot attempts per game has increased to 32. Beyond the Bruins top line on the blue line of Charlie McAvoy and Brandon Carlo, they're going to need their depth defensemen to step up. And we're seeing that in the game right now. Bruins are getting outshot 16-2 midway through the second period. That's not going to cut it if they want to keep the Leafs from forcing game 7 in Boston. So
yeah, these are the best podcasts to listen to, by the way, as the guys like watch it as it's happening, but then, obviously you listen to it the next day. So I hope that people are enjoying this. I wish there was more stuff happening that we could commentate on between these two teams, but it's been pretty tight. So yeah, I don't, we'll let this series settle before we kind of really do a post-mortem on either one of these teams.
Yeah.
I mean, as a neutral observer, it'd be awesome if the Leafs forced a game 7. That's kind of what I was hoping for going into tonight. I'm less than optimistic at this point, but we're halfway through this game and they're hanging in it.
I love the heroics from Matthew Nyes for Toronto in game 5. That kid really stepped up and scored the game winner, obviously, but showed the city of Toronto some grit and some passion and some heart that I think they've been.
Sorry, I don't mean to cut you off.
No,
he's
okay.
Not like cursed like the rest of these guys. He's
too
young. Yeah, he's too young to know that they're not supposed to win this. So yeah, no, shout out to him.
I look for him, dark horse candidate, and this would be tough because there's so many USA hockey players that are going to be chomping at the bit to make this USA team next year. Dark horse candidate to make Team USA. That's some grit that they're going to want.
Write it down, folks. When we see that in the official announcement, tell them Hard Hat Hockey had it first.
All right, Grant, fly with me. We're going to Raleigh, Carolina. The Canes beat the Islanders 4-1. Matt Martin was injured the last 2 games. Seems like the end of the line for him. Cal Clutterbuck, fourth liner they've leaned on, and a crowd favorite on Long Island, unrestricted free agent coming up here at the end of the season. Ilya Sorokin's $8 million contract kicks in this season. For me, that pretty much guarantees, Semyon Varlamov is going to have to be moved this offseason. And then you got the likes of the core of this team. Anders Lee, Kyle Palmieri, and Brock Nelson are all north of 30 years old. One of these guys has to be moved. They just continue to not be – they have scoring woes, and that's what's plaguing this team. They're not fast enough, frankly. But it's unfortunate, too, because like we discussed before the show, they were in every single game. In fact, blew some of their opportunities, including game 2 when they were up 3-0.
Yeah, I mean, that's the one. That's the one that you can't get past that. And if you're an Islanders fan, you're going to be thinking about that all off season. Yeah, all those guys are on the wrong side of 30, but I think they've still got some game left. There's still some tread on the tires. So they'll still be good. Martin not staying healthy, I think, is kind of the X factor for the Islanders. Clutterbuck being like the guy, and he's not the guy. That's not fair, but like that kind of tells you everything you need to know about the Islanders.
Agreed.
Agreed. And there's some beauty to that. There is, but man, a team that just is always hanging around. I don't find myself hating the Islanders. Like if the Islanders are playing the Rangers, you ask me who am I rooting for? I'm probably rooting for the Islanders. But I really thought they had some more success the past 3 years, but they haven't. And I don't know if they're gonna be able to just make some moves and get it together. I'm a little skeptical of their coach, but he might be the right guy for the job right now. I don't know.
See, I'm
It
skeptical of
remains to be seen.
their GM. I'm skeptical of Lou Lamoriello. I think Patrick Waugh kind of remains to be seen. Give him another season. I think it's too early to tell with him. I will say his first game was that outdoor game against the Rangers back in February. And since then, the Islanders went 20-12-5, including ending the regular season 10-2. So he injected some energy.
He has that effect on teams, but I don't, like I said, like right guy for the right moment, but like long term, I think you hit a wall with a guy like him.
I don't disagree. Cal Clutterbuck, your comment about him, I don't know why, just made me think of Matt Calvert for the Blue Jackets. Not a star, right? But he's just a guy. You're walking into that game. Well, we got Calvert. We're good. Oh, we got Clutterbuck.
Calvert's gonna score a goal at the very end of the second period, and it's just gonna change the game. Yeah. We just talked about like the cap era, like these type of guys are less and less prominent with the way the cap is and just how valuable young players are. Growing up, I felt like every team had, a guy like him. And a lot of those guys also dropped the gloves a lot. But, it's an end of an era. It's crazy. It's been there like 10 years. It's crazy.
Yeah, 100%. Moving on, the New York Rangers, the Blue Shirts, the Big Apple, Madison Square Garden, Heroes swept the Caps 4-0. Another team. Hey, while we're on the topic, really quick, there's a consistent theme here with the teams that lost in this year's first round. And I think that's going to lead to a massive changing of the guard as early as next season. There are a lot of teams here that are in very difficult cap situations with aging cores. That is just going to open the door for teams that maybe didn't make it this year. And I think there's going to be a lot of new teams in the playoffs as early as next season.
You nailed it. There's a pattern here. And you know what? None of these series were particular. I mean, we just said the Islanders series was close. The games were close, but yeah, it's not like, the Panthers were always in control of the series. The Rangers were always in control of this. Like, these teams are at the end of the rope here. We're going to get to the Kings too.
Oh yeah.
The middle is kind of the worst place to be. Because you're just stuck. You're not getting lottery balls. You're not able to, shed cap and be dynamic. And then you're not lasting far enough into the playoffs to build anything substantial culturally for both your locker room and the fan base. So yeah, being in the middle is awful.
100%. And no one knows that better than the Washington Capitals right now. Squeaked into the playoffs. So I'll start with the bright spot.
It's a crime that they made the playoff.
So also the bright spots are they've got two budding players in Connor McMichael and Hendrix Lapierre. They show promise, but they're not game breakers. And again, just like the Lightning, they do not have the assets or the prospects to really lean on at this point. Coming in, so next year they really have a decision to make. Do they tear it all down and essentially sacrifice Ovechkin's run at Wayne Gretzky's goal record? He has 41 goals to go. Or you essentially maintain what you can of this core, your rebuild, with the understanding that you're probably going to be in a similar situation, if not worse, next year. But the trade-off is you're helping Alex Ovechkin try to reach that goal record.
Yeah, that's the bargain that they have to make with themselves for the country's, trying to think of the right word, like national security. If they screw Ovi over in some capacity, I worry about what that does for just the safety of the world, with how important Ovi is to Russia. And then the Caps being in DC, can't overstate how weird that is. That will always be just wild. So I think the Caps have a duty for the defense of this country and the prosperity of freedom to let Ovi just record chase and stay out of the way of that. truthfully. And you know, if you're a Caps fan, yeah, the cup was like going back like 6 years ago, I think now, which is crazy to think about. It might even be a little longer. I think if you ask a Caps fan in 2016, like, hey, you're going to get a cup, but you're only going to get one and you're going to hit the wall pretty quickly. I think they take it. I think you take that deal. I think they're fine. I like big picture, what the Caps are, who the Caps have been. They're going to be fine. I like when the Caps won the cup, it kind of made me believe that the Jackets could in my lifetime. That's how like big of a deal that was. Now, granted, it helps having a generational talent like Ovi, but the Caps could never get over the hump, and they did. And just like we've talked about with all these other teams, there's a cost associated with that. And the cost is now, you know, TJ Oshie can't bend over to go to the bathroom. And that's awful. I shouldn't laugh. And then, you know, the cost of that is Tom Wilson makes $6.5 million.
Right. That's the other thing here.
Yeah.
Their cap situation is not good. Carlson might be the one who's you could at $8 million. It's probably an overpay at this point, but
he's still good.
Yeah, he's good. He's good. And at the time the contract inked, it made all the sense in the world. He absolutely was owed that contract. Wilson at $6.5 million for the next 7 years is highway robbery on Tom Wilson's agent. We talked about the TJ Oshie situation. At the end of the series, he was interviewed and talked about the back pain that plagued him pretty much from the end of last season all through this season. He essentially admitted he's having trouble going to the bathroom. He can't even stand at the toilet. He can't pick up his little girl. He's on the ground peeing in water bottles. That's how much pain he's experiencing right now. And he has a serious decision to make if he's going to return for next season. And that breaks my heart because we all remember Sochi Oshie. I mean, just legendary American hockey player.
Yeah, he'll always go down in history for that. We don't need to dive into who was goalie that day. But, you know, he's a legend. If that's what you're dealing with, man, I don't know. Hang it. It's easy for me to say, obviously, because all these guys want to compete. But if you're putting yourself through that just to get swept by the Rangers, man, like, man, that's
stuff.
But that's what makes guys good is they're willing to do that.
Love of the game.
It's crazy, man. But
hey, Grant, fly with me out west here, babe. Canucks versus the Preds. The Preds are down 3-2. Gutsy win on the road for Game 5. Game 4, utter heartbreak. They had the lead up 3-1 with 2 minutes to play in the game. Canucks score to make it 3-2 with 90 seconds left. The Preds drill the post on the empty net. Brock Besser comes down, scramble in front of the net. Great play by JT Miller. And UC Saros is scrambling, and they bury it with 6 seconds left. Canucks tie it 3-3 and then win 4-3. That game, when we look back on this series, no matter who wins, is going to be a pivotal moment. Bridgestone Arena Friday night is going to be rocking, and this is the Preds' opportunity to get redemption in front of the home crowd. They have outshot the Canucks in 4 of 5 games, and the Canucks are averaging only 18 shots per game.
It's efficiency. It's about being efficient.
I still think they can do it. I do.
Rooting for the Canucks here.
I know you are.
I know. I just find the Preds just very annoying, and that's not fair to Nashville. It's not fair to them. I'm excited for it though. I'll be tuning in, and this will be one that if it goes to a Game 7. We will have to start taking those riot questions very seriously.
Back into consideration.
Downplay that, but then just the way these past couple of games have gone, and then just the thought of, you know, the Preds winning like 4-1 tomorrow night, and then being like, oh no, a Game 7 in Vancouver. These fans have not really seen, because when they were good, it was like the COVID bubble playoff. So like there might be a lot of pent up energy. I might walk back a lot of what I said in the last podcast, but I'm excited for it. We'll be tuning in.
So we've got Utah Hockey Name Watch. We've got Vancouver Riot Watch. What other watch do we got going on?
Matt Rempe's suspension possibility.
Matt Rempe's suspension watch. Okay, a lot of watches.
We can integrate this into our social media. This keeps the conversation going between posts.
Absolutely. Yeah. Absolutely. Well, yeah. We're Brandon. Hard Hat Hockey. Speaking of Hard Hat Hockey, fans, we want to hear from you before we get into the Los Angeles Kings. We're now on Facebook and Twitter. Reach out, leave us a review, and email us if you're old school. Like I said earlier, hardhathockey1@gmail.com. However you listen to your podcast, Spotify, Apple, YouTube, Samsung, or Amazon, we've got you covered. We want to hear from you, and we will give you a shout out. Grant, Los Angeles Kings. 3 years in a row, they played the Edmonton Oilers. 3 years straight, they lost in the first round. 3 years ago, it took 7 games. Last year, it took 6 games. This year, it took 5 games.
There's a pattern here.
There's a pattern. Did a lot of digging on this one. So Rob Blake, as we know, is the Kings GM. Little history lesson. So 2-3 years ago, they found lightning in a bottle in goaltender Cal Peterson. He played 50 games, played well. They signed him for $5 million. The season after that, he thoroughly collapses, forcing Rob Blake's hand to trade him to the Philadelphia Flyers, leaving the Kings in that deal with $2 million of dead cap space. Along with that deal, they lost undrafted player Sean Walker, who's now on the Colorado Avalanche, looking like a stud. A year after that, they traded blue chip draft pick Brock Faber for Kevin Fiala. Brock Faber, now mentioned earlier, Calder Trophy nominee this season. Kevin Fiala, very quiet in the playoffs, kind of disappeared against the Oilers. Then, beginning of the season, 2023-2024, Rob trades Iafallo, Gabe Vilardi, Rasmus Kupari for Pierre-Luc Dubois, who ended up being on their fourth line, and even worse, signs him to an $8.5 million a year deal for 7 years. Coming into this offseason, they have $21 million in cap space, but only have 12 players signed and still have to re-sign Quentin Byfield. So not a lot of room to play with. To me, step one, you got to find a suitor for Pierre-Luc Dubois. You've got to get that contract off.
Good luck.
I understand. And to do so, as I have listed here, you're going to have to eat the salary. So the rules, for those of you who don't know, if you're going to retain salary on a contract, you can only retain up to 50%. So effectively for 7 years, the Los Angeles Kings would have to pay $4.25 million for
They have
Pierre-Luc
to co-sign his contract with the potential suitor.
Exactly.
So if you're trying to leverage that, you're going to, I don't know, who's a team on the edge?
You're going to have to give up more to make that happen.
Let's say like, hey, do you want a guy who might potentially be an all-star for four and a quarter? Like, but PLD's got to show you that he can do it, and we're still waiting on him to show us.
I think it's been long enough.
Yeah, he's an interesting kid. I was a big fan of him when he was here. A lot of Jackets fans have some ill will to him because he really did just like force his way out of here. And, that turned into Line. We had high hopes for Line. That hasn't worked out super great. I think The Athletic did like a really long article about him where he finally kind of opened up about that process where he basically was just, in his mind, he had a limited amount of time to leverage his skills on his own terms in a way to get paid and play in a city that he wanted to. It's kind of like a player empowerment sort of thing. And I can understand that, but you have to like produce and you have to like play hard or not play hard. I think everyone plays hard for the most part, but you can't be basically a fourth line asset with that price tag because then that hurts your ability to leverage your skills and then find other teams to play for. Like the Winnipeg made a move for him because he was good. And if you're not producing, all of a sudden you're going to get a reputation as a guy that you don't want on your team. So I don't know if he could turn it around. I think he's talented enough. He can, but it's a really tough spot if you're the Kings because you're right. You have to bring back, what did you say? Byfield. Because he's the guy producing. this guy putting up numbers. So if you only have 21 million, that's some money, but that eats up pretty quickly.
And they need to find a goaltender too. A lot of that cap space is going to be eaten up with a starting goaltender that they have to find. Cam Talbot, not a long-term solution, and Dave Rittich is going to be 37 years old. They've got to find their long-term goaltender. So a lot of that cap is going to be eaten up very quickly. And again, you're looking at another team. Talk about the changing of the guard. Anze Kopitar and Drew Doughty, love them to death. But those contracts in this team's window is effectively over.
Felt like it was over 5 years ago too. So this shouldn't be anything new. They shouldn't be shocked by this. Like I don't know what the Kings thought they were going to do. I mean, this feels like a video game, but it's not. It's real life.
The Brock Faber trade has to sting. I understand everyone's going to point to the PLD contract, but Brock Faber's surge in the league and his performance this year as a rookie on the blue line, that's what they need. That's what this team needs. And I think that's going to sting for years to come.
Yeah, I agree.
Okay, Grant. Last time we talked, the Vegas Golden Knights were up 2-0 against Dallas, and frankly, we were worried. I know I have emotional ties to this, given my feelings about the Vegas Golden Knights, but I won't get into those. I'll keep this professional. The Stars have won 3 straight, to include 2 straight in Vegas, and they won last night's game. Their power play went 2 for 4. Alexander Pietrangelo with some uncharacteristic penalties. It started as a major, as an elbowing call to Sagan's face, was then lowered to a minor. Regardless, Robertson gets the go-ahead goal going into the third period, and that holds for the Dallas Stars to get the win. Now they're going to go back to Vegas for Game 6 on Friday. I think it's very ironic that Anthony Mantha, who they traded for from the Washington Capitals at the trade deadline, they traded a 2nd and 4th round pick to bring him over and get under the salary cap. And now he is a healthy scratch. So it's just very interesting to me how that's worked out.
Yeah. You did a good job of getting through that, with your personal issues on it.
It was,
the Knights have hung around this, man. Again, another kind of Game 6. These are the series that we thought would be close have been close, and they've given us a lot of enjoyment. So it's that part of the first round has been nice. And it's also like, I know we have a pretty good show here and we want to take this seriously. I didn't have to tune into every Rangers Caps game, and that allowed some balance to this. So like the series that have been very competitive and exciting, mark your calendars for that. That's great. This is one of those that if you can stay up late, you can catch it, you're going to see some good hockey.
100%. Anything else here before we move to our last series?
I'm hoping the Stars just get this figured out for both of our sanities.
I agree. Unfortunately, the Avs are going to have to play the winner of this series, and that's going to be very tough to do. Speaking of the Avs won 4 straight against the Winnipeg Jets to win the series 4-1. What's next for Winnipeg? A little bit of history lesson. So last year, the Winnipeg Jets were also up 1-0 on the Vegas Golden Knights and also lost 4 straight, leading to Rick Bowness's comments at the end of that series, calling out the core of this team, talking about Mark Scheifele, Kyle Connor, and at the time, Blake Wheeler. Blake Wheeler moves on to be bought out over the summer and then plays for the New York Rangers for this season. Had a tough injury. I like Blake Wheeler, tough to see. But the Winnipeg Jets are moving in a different direction, looking for some leadership. Mark Scheifele signs a big-time contract along with Connor Hellebuck, and those kick in next season. The core of this team moving forward centered around Mark Scheifele and Kyle Connor and Connor Hellebuck and Josh Morrissey, who was probably their best player in the series.
He's good. He showed a lot. This is a good team. I don't know if it's cup contending team, but it's certainly playoff caliber. They're a tough team to play against. They have been since they came into the league. It's an organization with an identity of just like tough, like hard-nosed hockey, which I think there's something to be said about that. There's a lot of teams in the league that don't really know who they are or what they are, but they're seemingly kind of cold-blooded with some of these contract decisions. So we'll see what happens. I'm not blown away. I mean, I don't know. If you're asking me like who would I rather be, the Jets or like Seattle, the blank canvas of Seattle still is kind of interesting. But the Jets are they're going to be around for a little while. And if they can add, maybe like the Stamkos question mark, maybe who knows?
So decisions this coming off season really lie in Brendan Dillon on the blue line, Sean Monahan, Tyler Toffoli, Miller, and then they're going to re-sign Cole Perfetti, big time blue chip prospect that's been in their program. He had 19 points in his first 23 games for them this season. So you ride on those players, but you're right. Contract years are coming up for Nikolai Ehlers and Alex Iafallo. I know Ehlers wasn't a fan favorite in either of the playoff performances against the Avs this year or the Knights last year. I wonder if they try to move, given it's the last year of his contract, make some space. I think this is a team who does need a little bit more star power to make a bigger, deeper run in the playoffs. And that's why I have written here potentially would a Steven Stamkos make sense, or even a Patrick Kane, a unrestricted free agent this offseason, older guy, brings some star notoriety to an organization that frankly needs to sell some more tickets and go deeper in their Stanley Cup contention.
People in glass houses shouldn't throw stones. So I don't want to get too deep in the weeds on like attendance and star power, being a fan in Columbus. But you do kind of at some point look at the situation and say like, is the fact that they're in Winnipeg hurting their ability to get like the real top end talent? I'm always kind of skeptical of that argument because I think most guys just want to win. And if you put a good product out there, you can get some talent. I know they maybe had some like cultural locker rooms where they were just like going back a few years, like overly old school in that locker room in a time when like the league wasn't really like that and more geared towards like youth and speed and getting the next generation in there. They were seemingly kind of holding on to like the old guard and the old boys vibe. But I don't know. You're right. It's a great hockey market. I think like if you look at a map, I think they fit in pretty well. They're in the middle of nowhere, but like Minnesota's kind of right there, and their ability to represent a very cool and interesting part of Canada, I think is important. You want them to. Again, maybe if I was like a fan of Edmonton, I'd feel very differently. If I was a fan of the Wild, I'd hate these teams. But like I want to see a little something out of the Jets.
I hope Rick Bowness can figure it out. I know a lot of fans and analysts in the league are debating the thought of firing Rick Bowness. I've only heard great things about his character, so hopefully they give him another chance. Hopefully he can figure it out, and hopefully they get a little bit of star power this offseason and they can build on that. Because I do, like you said, I have a lot of respect for that fan base and that hockey town and their culture as a whole.
They're on a cross. Well, I don't know if I'd even say they're at a crossroads, but it's just like an off season of change.
I agree. Okay, Grant, that wraps it up for effectively going to be the end of our round one analysis. Over the weekend, it will be the end of round one, and we'll tie up what's next for the losing teams in the series that are still ongoing. The battles are still raging. To end the show, we've got a few fun things to attend to, Grant. So top five Stanley Cup odds here. So for the teams remaining, this is just for the record. I think any of these teams that I've listed can win the cup. So I don't want any fan bases to get mad at me. And any team remaining of the
What book are you going with here?
well,
Just gambling's like everywhere now.
yeah,
So is this MGM or DraftKings or?
It's hard hat hockey's.
Oh, okay, all right.
Yeah, teams and any of the 8 teams remaining.
So this isn't Vegas. This is who you're saying.
Yeah.
Oh, okay. This is Trent Dunn's book.
This is my book.
Bet Dunn.
Yeah.
180. Okay. All right. So, I'm on board.
From top to bottom here, I think the Panthers handled a Tampa Bay team that was probably better than the series showed. The Panthers are just that good, and it speaks to them being able to handle even quality teams such as the Tampa Bay Lightning, who have a ton of star power. Edmonton Oilers, they the game 4 result was concerning. That 1-0 result in Los Angeles. They only had 13 shots on goal, so that was potential caution with this pick. But I do think that their star power and their added depth this season makes them a serious contender. So I got them at number 2 on my Stanley Cup. At number 3,
That's pretty bold.
I know. Just work with me. At number 3, I've got the Dallas Stars. I think they're going to finish out the Vegas Golden Knights and go into a very contentious series with division rival the Colorado Avalanche, who I have at number 4. I thought they started to look into true form and really turned on the guns on a four game win streak. A couple of those on the road with impressive wins in Winnipeg. And then at number 5, I've got the Rangers. I know they won the President's Trophy and they can obviously win it all. I just don't think they were really tested like other teams were in that first round, playing a Washington Capitals team.
That could be a good thing. They could have fresh legs.
So would you change any of that?
Yeah, I'd bump the Rangers up to like 2. I like the Panthers as like a very safe Stanley Cup pick. I'd go Panthers, Rangers, Stars, Oilers, Avs.
Okay. You heard it here first.
Probably how I would rank the rest of those. We're not even including the Bruins or Leafs in this conversation.
That's okay.
Yeah, or the Canucks or the Preds. Yeah, I think Panthers, if you're, again, odds, if that's who you're betting on. And then I think the Rangers are just too talented not to be in the conversation.
Folks, Hard Hat Hockey's first Stanley Cup odds ever. You heard it here first. If you like money, ask us all about it. Before we tie up our show with our tradition, the Hard Hats of the Week. The Hard Hats of the Week are sponsored by Leroy's Bar. Located in the heart of Worcester, Ohio, Leroy's establishment has provided cheap pitchers and a safe haven for blue-collar workers alike since 1969. Leroy's can be your hockey home for all the NHL playoff action. Drink responsibly and drive safe. Okay, Grant, would you like to lead or would you like me to?
Yeah, I'll lead off. I have at least 2 I've been thinking about. First one is Rob Brindamore, coach of the Carolina Hurricanes, for creating a machine in Raleigh that's, we talked about steamroll the Islanders, and he's due for a big payday. And apparently Carolina's front office and management is balking at the idea of giving him the dollar amount that he feels he deserves.
Pay the man. Pay that.
You're my hero. If they won't, I'm not sure what you're into other than lifting weights. I know there's some great gyms in the greater Columbus area if you are interested in. Let's talk. So that's one of them. And then to the same token, John Cooper in Tampa is also maybe on the out. I'll extend the same offer to John Cooper if the Lightning feel like this is it and he's out of there. Let's talk, man. Let's get a round of golf in and see if you like it here. I know the Jackets currently have a head coach, but we're going to bring in a new GM, and I just want to get out ahead of this. I think the new GM should bring in a coach that they've put in place themselves and can kind of work together and do a little 2-man weave of building an organization and a team. I think if you bring in a GM, but then keep the current coaching staff, I think you just lose a year because you're just not on the same page. So I'm not a fan of that. So those 2 guys might be in the market, and I'd love for them to at least consider Columbus if it's an option. And then my number 1 hard hat, I'm going off script. I'm going off sports here. If you follow me on Twitter as we get kind of moving on this, you'll know my other passion other than hockey is soccer. Here in Columbus. Columbus Crew last night went down to Monterrey, Mexico, and won 3-1 in the CONCACAF Champion Cup semifinals. Aggregate score winners 5-2. So they played in Columbus and Monterrey. Score carries over. This is the first time like an MLS team has went down to Monterrey specifically and beat them in a long time. First time it's happened in like a knockout game environment, like a tournament. So the Columbus Crew are going to the CONCACAF Champions Cup final on June 1st against Pachuca in Mexico. If they win this, they would be the second MLS team in the modern era to win this form of this competition. They won the MLS USA Cup. I'm talking a lot of soccer here, Trent. I apologize. But I'm really jacked up. Last night was awesome. Playing great. The city's really behind them. Just goes to show how great of a sports town Columbus is, that these games are like selling out. The local news is covering this pretty extensively. The Dispatch has put a lot of effort into this. So there's a lot of great people involved in Columbus sports and the Columbus Crew. And we're kind of at a point where we're writing history with our results and getting to stages that they have not been yet. So it's really exciting here in the city.
Folks, moral of the story with Grant's Hard Hats of the Week, if you're a big-time coach in the NHL and you're looking for a change, look no further than Columbus, Ohio. A lot of big things going on and a up-and-coming hockey program in Nationwide Arena.
In 24 years, it's up and coming.
Well,
a lot of potential here.
A lot of potential.
If you do well here, you'll be loved. I mean, that's
your own story.
Yeah. You have a couple of good years. It's like, man, he's the best. Like, we can name a street after him.
If you wouldn't love the Columbus Blue Jackets winning the Stanley Cup, you need to rethink some things. Okay, let's get into my hard hats of the week. At number 3, Grant, I've got the New York Rangers just in general. They're the only team that completed a sweep. That's never easy to do, even against probably the worst team in the playoffs, but still winning 4 straight games in the NHL. That's tough, and they did it. So congrats.
It's not easy to bury teams. Congrats to the Rangers. We kind of saw that even the teams that we knew were bad squeaked out a win there. So, no, that's a great pick.
At number 2, I got 2 teams here. I felt compelled to add the second one. So I got the Avs for winning 4 straight and doing the gentleman's sweep, as I learned it was called. But I've also got the Dallas Stars for winning 3 straight. I got to be honest, at the end of our last episode, I thought they were down 0-2 going into Vegas. I was very concerned, and they have proved me wrong, and I think they finished this thing out. At number 1, you're going to appreciate this. I've got the Vancouver Canucks goal horn. Had no idea they incorporated Nickelback's Burn It to the Ground. If you work out, that's a great song for your playlist. That gets me fired up every single day. Love that song. Love Nickelback.
We might be a little too early in this show to out ourselves as Nickelback guys.
It's a great show.
Our subscribers are going to tank. They're going to be like, no, they're into Nickelback. Yeah, no, that is a great. Well, Nickelback's Canadian. Like that is them like being like, we got to support our guys.
I just envision a bunch of dudes at Rogers Place Arena in tank tops who were born in the 90s, just getting after it when this song plays. So,
I'm born in the 80s.
80s, yeah, I guess you're right.
Yeah.
All right.
Yeah, no, that's a great pick.
Do it for us here for episode 4. Again, look forward to episode 5 when we do our round 2 analysis. The question we're going to leave you with, and reach out again on social media or via email, hardhathockey1@gmail.com. If Hard Hat Hockey owned the next NHL expansion team, what city would we call home? If we ever tapped into ownership, where's Hard Hat Hockey calling home? Got it.